welcome. You've made it to our April Network Café, which is the most exciting one of the year. Meet the New Hampshire Food and Agriculture Strategic Plan. And this is our last one, part of our Network Café series of this year. So this is a big momentous occasion. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Colleen Jennings. I'm the network coordinator for the New Hampshire Food Alliance. We always like to start things off with some introductions. So now you know me, I want to know you. Put your name in the chat, your affiliation, whatever you want to share about yourself, and start connecting with folks in the chat. There are 37 people here and counting. A lot of people you can get to know that way, and definitely later on in the time together as we do some connecting later. While you do that, I'm going to talk a little bit about who we are here at the New Hampshire Food Alliance. Go to the next slide, Nicole. We're the New Hampshire Food Alliance, whereas I'm one of a small team of people who makes up our staff, but we coordinate together a network of people, businesses, organizations, and communities that are all working together to build a strong and viable and resilient food system here in the Granite State. So us and all of these organizations that you see on this slide and many more, there's over 200 organizations part of our network that work across all different areas of the food system, but we're all working towards the same goal, is working towards a food system that works for all here in our wonderful state. And through our work, we do a myriad of different things, different gatherings and networking events, and one of them is events like this, our Network Café series. You can go to the next slide. Which is, we have these on the first Friday of each month, and they're just a really casual space for people to come and learn about a variety of food system topics that are really top of mind for us right now, things that we're kind of dealing with at the moment, or exciting things that have happened and that we want to share with a larger audience. So these Network Cafe series are for everybody. They're really inclusive opportunities for learning and growing together in our food systems work. And if you want to know a little bit more about what you can expect from us during this time and what we're expecting of you, take a look at our agenda and take a look at the community agreements, and that'll kind of give you a good idea of what you can expect if this is your first time joining a Network Cafe. And we do all of this work here at the University of New Hampshire. We are part of the university at the Sustainability Institute. And as part of the Sustainability Institute and UNH, we share the university's dedication to its core educational mission by embracing the many characteristics of our community members that make them uniquely themselves. So in that vein, we are going to dive into a really big topic today. I'm really excited. I was just talking to Nicole right before we jumped on here, and I don't even really have the words to say how excited I am for all of us to present about the strategic plan. It's been a labor of love for Nicole primarily, but me and the rest of the team and so many of you on this call. So she's going to dive right into it. And as you have questions, put them in the chat. This is going to be a kind of a casual tour through things, and we'll kind of answer things as we go. But I will pass it to Nicole.
Thank you, Colleen. Thank you, everyone, for being here. I am not used to being the one sharing the slides. It's going to take, I keep missing the cue. I am so thrilled to talk to you all today and introduce and walk you through the New Hampshire Food and Agriculture Strategic Plan. Here. So what I'm hoping you'll leave our conversation with is the answer to three major questions. One, what is this strategic plan and why does it matter? Why did we all do it? How can you use it and access it, both conceptually, how or do we hope it will be used, and also logistically, how can you access the information to meet your purposes and needs best? And what happens next? What happens now that this is published and launched? So this strategic plan, as many of you in this Network Cafe know all too well, is over a year in the making. I think 18 months in the making. And it is a big deal for our state. It is the first time it's ever been done in New Hampshire. We're the second state in New England to publish and launch a statewide food and agriculture strategic plan. And I'm really proud of all of the incredible energy and expertise and experience that went into this body of work. Um, the hope was that we would pull together all of the best thinking around the state, around what is happening, where's our food system at, and what is needed to strengthen it. So we're going to walk you through that today. And my favorite way of viewing the strategic plan is this as an opportunity for transformation, that it can serve as this actionable roadmap for us as a state and as a food system community towards positive change, and really streamline and help us coordinate all of our efforts to fund and do transformative, meaningful projects and work, pass policies, develop programs, invest in infrastructure where and when it's needed, and connect with each other to get this work done. The strategic plan, there are so many organizations involved, and I'll speak a little bit to that, but I'd want to just call out for the organizations that this project would not have happened without. The New Hampshire Department of Agriculture, Markets and Food. I believe Assistant Commissioner Josh Marshall's on with us today. I didn't see all the participants' names, but the Department of Agriculture team was absolutely instrumental in doing this and giving us the authority to do it and some of the funding to do it and supporting us along the way. The New Hampshire Charitable Foundation also provided critical funding for this project and support in serving on the advisory committee. The Henry P. Kendall Foundation supports the New Hampshire Food Alliance, and so allowed us to spend a lot of time doing this work over the last year and a half. And Cooperative Extension provided a substantial amount of in-kind support through, I'm sure many of you on this call today. Almost every brief had at least one Cooperative Extension staff person that has, many, many years of experience and knowledge about these issues and direct relationships with our food producers. And we just couldn't have done this project without all of that support from all of you. And many other organizations are involved. These are not even all of them. These are some of the organizations that served on the advisory committee for the strategic plan, that helped us make some key decisions along the way, of which there were many. And I want to show you this. This slide is by the numbers. So we're going to come back to it a couple of times. But what I want to start with is pointing out this. There were 26 advisory committee members. You saw some of the logos for the organizations and agencies and communities that they represent. There were also 118 subject matter experts representing 89 organizations that authored certain parts of this brief. And there were many other ways to get involved along the way. And I hope many of you were involved. Maybe you submitted one of the 190 comments during the public comment period that were considered, and many were integrated into the final content. Maybe you contributed that first 6 to 8 months when we did the participatory engagement plan. I know there are many authors and subject matter experts on this call too. So there are many ways that you may have already contributed. And if you didn't, or even if you did, there are many ways to be part of this movement moving forward. This is just the beginning. But through the process, we learned a lot. And one of my favorite aspects, one of the most important aspects that the strategic plan offers, is a lot of phenomenal data about our food system that we can all use in many different ways. So I'm going to give you a little example of some data that helped paint a picture for us, as a project management team and also as the advisory committee, as we tried to wrap our arms around where the food system is in New Hampshire and what's needed. So this is a chart that shows the number of New Hampshire farms engaged in each production category. I just think it's an interesting one. So if you are managing, for example, Berry Grower Association, you might be interested to know that 377 producers say they grow berries. 471 produce maple products. So there's just a lot of great information here. And as many of you know, we have about 4,000 farms across the state. This chart shows the value of farms by value of sales. And what I want to point out here, what I'm hoping you'll take away, is that we know that New Hampshire farms are really small. but this really shows how small New Hampshire farms are. So 65% of New Hampshire farms have sales of less than $10,000. And then more than that have sales of less than $50,000. So that's sales, not accounting for expenses at all, or paying, including paying the humans that run the farm or work on the farm. So our farms are very, very small, and this helps to understand the spread. And along that same front, New Hampshire, this chart shows New Hampshire farms with net income losses. So 70%, I think the most interesting part is this part up here, not even the chart itself. 70% of New Hampshire farms had net losses in 2022. So that means that their expenses exceeded their revenue. And it's a jarring statistic, and one that's really important to consider, especially as we approach this plan through the lens of farm viability, or lenses of farm viability and equity. And this one really speaks to farm viability. How are farms operating, and how do we help farms and farmers to be able to have a livelihood from this work that they love and that is so meaningful to all of us? So that leads me to one aspect of the strategic plan, which is the vision. What are we working towards? What is this plan trying to lead us as a food community and as a state and as a region towards? This is the vision statement that was developed. And the only slide I'll hopefully ever read to you. We envision an equitable and just food system in New Hampshire, in which healthy and local food is accessible to and valued by all Granite Staters, where producing food can be a viable occupation, and farmers and fishermen are well-resourced and supported in producing a variety of crops and products, where there is a thriving local and regional food economy and jobs within our food system that provide livable wages, supportive workplace conditions, and access to healthcare and other benefits, and where the New Hampshire food system is a steward of our natural resources and is resilient in the face of a changing climate. And so later, when I show you the online interactive website, you're going to see that the goals, what we call goals in the strategic plan, these are fragments of this vision statement. And we've tried to tie the content together through using those as threads. Colleen, are there questions? I just want to give you a chance to stop me. No, okay. So something that I'm not sure that many people are grasping as this is coming to you via email for now is that there's one great body of information, body of work, and there's two ways to view it. One is a printer-friendly PDF version, and I'm going to show you some elements of that, and you can access and download that, and there will be hard copies available at various events in the months to come. And then there's an online interactive web version, but it is the same content. It's just two different ways to view it and access it, because as we envisioned how this will be used in the years to come, we thought that that would help all of us access the information and keep it alive and fresh and current as we need to and want to. So we're back to by the numbers, but this time we're going to focus on these top ones. So we're going to dive into some of the actual content of the strategic plan. The bulk of the pages of the strategic plan are 27 product, market, and issue briefs. They were developed by 118 subject matter experts, many of which are on this call today. And they include, across the 27 of them, 143 specific recommendations. So I'm going to show you, these are the topics that we included in the strategic plan. All of them, as I mentioned, were considered through the lens of equity and farm viability. These are the products that were covered, and you can see these on the website in a bit. Markets, and a long list of issues that are really important. So together, these product, markets, and issues were the list that we heard from our advisory committee, broader food community. These were the most crucial ones to cover if we're going to support and grow a thriving local food system. So I want to walk you through the anatomy of a brief really quickly. This 3-page PDF you see in front of you is what a brief looks like, the PDF design version of it, print design version. And there are a few different sections. There's what's at stake that gives you a really quick, why does this matter? It might be really helpful if you are an advocate, a person advocating to state legislators, for example. It gives you a short blurb to say, why should I care about this issue? Current conditions lay out, these are all very short, but they lay out as concisely as possible what is the situation. So for grocery stores and food cooperatives, the purpose is to explore the challenges and opportunities of sourcing more local and regional food in our grocery stores and retail food cooperatives. So what's at stake says why that's important. Current condition lays out what are we currently sourcing at grocery stores? What data do we have around it? How what do we know about the current conditions of local sourcing at our grocery stores and retail food cooperatives? Challenges and opportunities lays out challenges and opportunities, and the opportunities we viewed as, where we tried to view as assets, not just as sort of the flip side of the challenges, but rather, what do we have that is good? What do we have that we can build on as a state and as a food community? You'll see some really relevant data and charts in here that you're welcome to use however they are helpful to you. For this example, there's a breakdown of market share for New Hampshire's grocery sector. There's a chart of all the current retail food co-ops in the state. And I'm not sure, I can't see any others right now. This section is one of the most important ones. It lays out, typically it's 5 recommendations on a brief. There are some exceptions to that rule, but we asked authors to really firm up and agree upon as a group 5 specific actionable things that would really help move the needle on this issue. What can we agree on is needed and would be helpful? And those are laid out there. And then lastly on here, you'll see the authors. So if you're thinking, where did this content come from? Who informed it? Really hope it wasn't just Nicole. It certainly was not. Here you'll see the lead author. Almost all of the briefs have a lead author and then have 2 to 4 contributing authors, and you can see their names and organizations at the bottom. So I'm going to pause there, let Colleen tell me if there are questions, and bring you over to the interactive web version to check that out.
I don't see any
Colleen,
questions. Yeah, no questions in the chat. Does anyone have anything they want to come off mute and ask? That was a lot of info, but I'm sure we can
but the
break.
best is yet to come, so
Yeah,
maybe we shouldn't encourage them.
that's true. All right.
All right, give me a few more minutes to show you this, and then I hope you'll have some questions. So again, this is going to be the same content, but there's some differences. So if this is the New Hampshire Food Alliance website, and right here you'll see the New Hampshire Food and Agriculture Strategic Plan, and there are a number of menu options to go to. So this is the print PDF version. So you can just click this and download it and have it yourself if you want to. We will have, this is intended for print. Oh, my computer is just going a little slow. So here's the lovely print version. And the way I like to think of this, the way we've come to think of this content is the sort of opening pages, which lay out the timeline and process. How was this developed? What do we mean by lens of equity and how is that implemented? What do we mean by lens of farm viability and how is that implemented? And then the vision and goals we've talked about, the list of briefs and themes we heard come up again and again. And we'll talk about the organizational directory in a bit. And then you have all of the briefs in there. So you can look this over if you want, but this is the print PDF version and it's 143-page glory. Back to the web version. I'm gonna, let's see, I'm gonna show you. So here are some great charts that you might use to understand the New Hampshire food system or to advocate for your work or justify projects you want to do. There's many ways that we hope that this information will be used. So here are some employment, food system employment data, agricultural sales, seafood sales and fishery landings, etc. You can play around there. And then we can dig into the plan. So the vision and goals, I'm gonna show you this part. So we already talked about the vision statement. And then I mentioned the goals. So the goals pull out key fragments, sentiments within that vision statement. And then what we did was we tried to lay out here are the briefs where you'll really see that come front and center. So you can the goal with the dynamic interactive website is that all of this content is connected, and we tried to lay it out in a way that you could access it for whatever you needed in a variety of ways. So there are many ways in. So healthy and local food access, it's really nutrition access and security is where that one comes up most heavily, but it's in many of the others as well. Food products, so on and on. I won't go through them all. The briefs are laid out right here. And this gives a shorter version of what I just did with the anatomy of a brief. What are the sections? And then you can check out each brief. So say you wanted to do, let's see, fruit and vegetables. This is the same content. This is a PDF. If you wanted the PDF, if you want to print it and bring it somewhere, print it. And if you're teaching a class at the university, perhaps you want to print it and bring it for your students or assign it. You can do that right here, just the 3 to 4 page brief. But the same content is right here, as is the data. And then at the bottom, there's a little bonus bit of information, and that is organizations working on this issue. So I'm going to make it a little bigger. So this is one example in fruit and veg, which is a really tricky brief to lay out organizations working on this issue because it's a very broad one. But all of the briefs have a list of organizations working on this issue towards the bottom. And if your organization or your program, if you want to see it on there, but it's missing, you can just fill out this form right here and let us know, and we will make sure to get you added. The authors are also down here. And references. The print version of the briefs do not have references, the footnotes on there, but we did include them on the web version, so you know. All right, now this is the fun. I think this is the most exciting part. So all of those briefs, 27 briefs, have a total of 143 recommendations. So of course you can see those through the brief pages if you wanted, but you can also skip right to the action of the next steps if that's where your mind goes. And so these are all of the recommendations, all 143, and there are ways to filter, sort, and get to what is helpful to you. So I'll do a little demo here. So you might be, is Representative Bixby on this call, Colleen? No, okay. I'm going to use him as an example. Maybe you're a state legislator, maybe you're Representative Peter Bixby, and you want to see, what policies and regulation changes were proposed in the strategic plan. Perhaps it's coming into the fall and you're thinking, well, what do I want to propose for the next legislative session? And you'd like some ideas that are backed in many of the experts across our state. So you could just look at the policy ones, and there are a lot. There are, I don't know, a bunch here, a couple pages of them, maybe a little overwhelming. Representative Bixby is really interested in natural resource conservation. And so maybe he wants to sort by the goal, natural resources, and see if that narrows it down a bit more for him. And it does. So there's 5 policy recommendations from the New Hampshire Food and Ag Strategic Plan that are both focused on strengthening our food system and on natural resources conservation. And so he might then scan through and say, establish a food recovery and diversion working group. That's interesting. Let me take a look. And if you click on it, you can see, a longer couple sentences about what the vision is there from the authors. And if you're craving more context and, maybe he wants to move this forward, but has some questions or needs some help to frame it in a really powerful data-based way, then you can go right over to the wasted food brief where it's from. And that lays out, so you have what's at stake, you have why that's important, You have related data and current conditions. You have the challenges and opportunities that really tee up those recommendations. Why was that included? It's laid out right here. I'm going to go back to the recommendations page again. So there's many ways to sort these. You can do a keyword search. There are some tags in here that might be helpful for you all. So you might be a funder that's looking for projects to support. You might be a nonprofit that wants to do a certain project and you want to help your potential funders understand that this is included in the strategic plan, that it helps advance the New Hampshire Food and Ag strategic plan. So you might try to find a program that's close to what you're envisioning as you think do strategic planning for your organization. And then when you put forth your proposal, say, this is included in the climate resilience and disaster relief brief of the New Hampshire Food and Agriculture Strategic Plan, for example. So we're really hoping that this can help no matter who you are. If you are here, you're interested in supporting a stronger food system in New Hampshire. So if you're a funder, if you're a state legislator, if you're a nonprofit leader, if you're a producer, if you're a consumer, there are many different ways in to support this work. What did I not show, Colleen? Let's see. So I just want to touch on this quickly, and then I'll bring you back to the slides and go to your questions. So we have the plan is that the main jump off site, vision and goals, the briefs page. I know what I forgot. So underneath the briefs, where you can link to any of the briefs and go to them, we laid out here what came up again and again. What were some persistent themes? And we wanted to be really cautious to not say that these are the top priorities because as one of our advisory committee members pointed out, we didn't do that priority. We weren't able yet to do that type of prioritization exercise. But what did we hear again and again? There were some really important themes. So housing, for example, came up many times, food processing, farmland protection, access to funding, not just actually getting funding, but the ways in which we all and producers are able to sort of streamline access to existing funding. Resilience to a changing climate, and valuing and accessing local food. So for each of these persistent themes, you'll see here brief with relevant recommendations. So if you're wondering, let's see, one that's a great, like housing is a really interesting cross-cutting issue. And there were relevant recommendations related to housing in all of these briefs, 1, 2, 3, 4 of the 27 briefs, and you can link to it right there. You could also in recommendations search the word housing, but there are many ways to access all of the same information. And then if you're curious about how this was developed or all of the incredible people that played a really key role in developing it, you can check out the people behind the plan. It's one of my favorite pages. The process and timeline has that information. The people behind the plan would tell you who was on the development team, our key staff that helped to make this project happen over the last 18 months. The advisory committee, led by Commissioner Sean Jasper, who's been an incredible supporter of this work the whole way through from start to finish. And then all of the brief authors, 118 of them, you're wondering who they are. They're listed in the bottom of those briefs. They're also here. So you can take a look and see all the faces and names behind the strategic plan. And if you're wondering about who those people are and what they represent in the food system in terms of geography, in terms of race, in terms of gender identity, and many other variables, there's some of that information is here to help provide transparency around who was involved in the creation of this plan. Okay, so the plan was published about 2 weeks ago on March 18th. Um, and we've had a lot of phenomenal press and support and great positive responses since then. I hope you're seeing it come up in many different ways through your newsfeed and life. But this is really only the beginning. And so much work has gone into getting to this point. But what's exciting about this plan is that it's a opportunity to come together and coordinate around it, to orient to it, and to move forward together. Colleen said this, and I wrote it into the slide. This is a collective resource that we created as a community, and we're going to move it forward together. And that's not as simple as a strategic plan where it's like, first we're going to do X, then we're going to do Y, then we're going to do Z, and then we're done on this date. It's more complex than that, unfortunately. But food systems are complex, and this strategic plan brings together so much great thinking and gives us a framework, a playbook, I sometimes say, to move forward as a community, as a network. So what happens next? One, I hope you dig in and use it and explore it. If you're very confused, please tell us. If you're very inspired, please tell us. I have so many ideas, and I hope many of you do as well, about what happens now with the website and with the content. But the first step is our New Hampshire Food System statewide gathering, which is on May 21st. It's at Sanborn Mills Farm in Loudon. We heard calls from you all to have one a little closer to Concord this year. So we're moving around to some beautiful different locations. And registration is open now. And this statewide gathering is focused on this strategic plan. It is a celebratory day when we will come together to launch this in person. We'll have print copies of it there. And all of the breakout sessions, they're each focused around moving forward at least one recommendation from the plan. The breakout sessions are really exciting. It has been such a joy to read through them and help support them. And those will all be on our website for you to peruse, I think, starting next week. So keep an eye out for that if you're curious, if you need a little nudge to register. But I hope that we'll see many of you there. And then how we're going to help, the New Hampshire Food Alliance moving forward will be playing a role of implementing this plan, moving it forward, coordinating around it in some ways. Exactly what those ways are still up in the air. We're hoping to use the next 4 to 5 months to really step back and hear from you all and do some thinking around the most impactful ways that we can use our limited staff time. So some action teams or some specific coordination is coming from us in the fall. But for now, the best way you can stay involved in that way is to make sure you're signed up for the newsletter, the New Hampshire Food System News You Need to Know. And I'm sure Colleen could maybe put it in the chat, because then when we launch those new action teams, when we have more information about what we'll be doing to help move things forward, you'll be the first to know. So thank you all. I'm going to transition to questions and discussions now. Do we have questions yet?
Everybody's a little quiet. I think they're in awe.
One can hope.
Or dizzied by the website now. No, that was awesome. I've been so in it, but just to see it from presented in that way was so enlightening, I think. I hope others felt the same way. Yeah, if folks have questions, feel free to raise your hand, come off mute, ask a question, or even just share something that maybe you found interesting. As Nicole said, it's been out for a couple weeks, so hopefully you dove right in and have it, a copy printed by your bedside and are doing some reading and like me. But yeah, if there's things that people want to discuss. Oh, Jamie's got a great question. Can you say more about the breakout sessions coming up at the statewide gathering?
Yeah, Colleen, maybe you'll help me say more about them. So the statewide gathering is, if you haven't been before, we all come together. There's about usually 150 to 200 people there. There's a lot of open time that it's not very rushed, but the breakout sessions, there will be 8 or 9 breakout sessions throughout the day. 2 opportunities to do 2 different sections and then 4 or so sessions for each option. And maybe we'll say one of our favorite ones, Colleen, each,
Okay.
um, or a couple. You wanna go first?
Sure. This is top of mind because I was just emailing about it with my good friends Sarah Reitzman and Teresa Walker, who maybe are on here. We're doing a follow-up from our previous Network Cafe in March, our housing and agriculture and food system um, network cafe that we did, and we're gonna kind of take it that next step further, invite some really exciting folks that are working at that intersection of housing and ag. They're actually doing specific projects, um, with different strategies to kind of strike that balance and create housing and also set aside land for food production or inspire more food production. So the three of us are working really hard to get some really fascinating people who've done some really, really exciting projects and work to come and talk about it and also answer questions and workshop with others who are interested in doing projects like that so we can do more of them. So that is one I'm excited about.
Alright, I thought of one. That's a great. So I'm pulling up the recommendation that the
Mhm.
one I'm thinking of is focused around. So this is one of the wasted food recommendations. It's to replicate the Composting Association of Vermont's program on farms. So the CAV, as it's called, has a really strong on-farm community composting program where they've supported on-farm community composting operations as a way to reduce organic matter going into landfills and to provide a new revenue source and source of organic matter to to small farms. And I'm not very familiar with how exactly they do that and the toolkits and grants and technical assistance they provide. But Paige Wilson um, with New Hampshire Department of um, Environmental Services is working with them and bringing them in to help us learn about what they do, how they've done it, and help us as a state think about how to replicate that. Do we work with them to expand their program? Do we need to create a similar program? So it's what I'm calling a learn together session. Let's learn from them first and then figure out how we begin to replicate that. Another session that I'm excited about is Anton Beckerman, who's the director of the New Hampshire Agricultural Experiment Station, which is at the University of New Hampshire. I've learned more about him and his work and the Ag Experiment Station's work over the last couple years. And I thought that it's a really important opportunity for us all to understand what the Ag Experiment Station does and to have him help us do some synthesis of the research related recommendations in the plan. So he's going to come to a New Hampshire Ag Experiment Station 101. What is it? How does it work? How are research decisions made related to food and agriculture at the University of New Hampshire? Um, and how do we influence that? And what research recommendations came through in the strategic plan? There are many, and you can filter on the recommendations page if you want and see them. Um, there are many, and we asked him for some help, sort of wrapping our minds around the research recommendations put forth and how we might begin to make them happen. So that's one of the other sessions.
Okay. I have a question from Andrew. What other New England states have published a similar report or plan, and did we collaborate with them? And he also wants to know if we're going to be sending this
Yeah.
to state and federal legislators.
Yes, thank you for that question. It's a great question. It's hard. There was so much I wanted to say in the slides that I could have filled the whole thing up with context. And so, but this plan was created very much in partnership with our New England neighbors. So the New Hampshire Food Alliance and the New Hampshire Department of Agriculture, Markets and Food represent our state in the New England Food System Planners Partnership. They put out the New England Feeding New England report. Maybe Caitlin or Colleen can put a link in the chat. And one of the key outcomes of that report, just the the report looks to how we can strengthen our local food systems within each state and as a New England region. And the group is oriented around a goal of 30% regional food by 2030. And so one of the key recommendations for that group is that each individual state have a statewide food and agriculture strategic plan. Vermont published theirs, their second iteration of it a few years back, and helped us all understand what they did and how they did it, and what they would have done differently, but where it's been really meaningful. And that we did this process in parallel to theirs. We made some modifications to make it work, I think, better for New Hampshire, um, and to learn from some of the things that they shared with us. But it was very much in parallel with what they had done, Vermont had put out. And Rhode Island is in process of their own strategic plan on a similar timeline to ours, and is being published any week now, I think in a couple of weeks. And it's a similar structure with some key differences. So they're also doing briefs. I think they have 21 or 22 briefs. There are some differences, but some very clear parallels. So, and will you be distributing the report to state and federal legislators? Yes, we will. Colleen, do you want to speak to that?
Yes, so I've sent it in its digital form to all of our federal legislators and their teams, with some of them are here today, which is great, and to our state legislators as well. And I think we'll be doing, I told Nicole I'm putting her on the road and she's going to do some presentations about the strategic plan and things that are relevant to those groups. So that will be happening in the near future. Thank you for that question, Andrew.
I see Tia's.
Yes, you want to answer Tia's question?
Yeah, so Tia asked, are you prioritizing the implementation of any of the specific recommendations? So you did not miss that, Tia. We did not answer that. The publication of the plan includes all of the recommendations, 143. We tried to call out some persistent themes that we heard again and again as I showed, but at this point, no, we are not prioritizing the implementation of any specific recommendations. I think Caitlin Porter, one of my teammates here, said this as we were trying to think about how to prioritize. She said, the beauty of this thing is that we don't have to prioritize, that there are hundreds. There are, on the organizational directory that's part of the plan, there are 374 organizations listed. There are over 200 organizations in the Food Alliance network. One of them is Cooperative Extension, which has so many incredible staff people. So there are so many people and organizations and communities and businesses doing this work, and they all have different pieces of the puzzle. So I don't think that the next phase is as simple as prioritizing certain recommendations. I think it's the Food Alliance's priority is coordinating our complex network and community to understand who's doing what, where are there major gaps, and how can this information help us move some of these forward as we're able to, as we're in positions to propose projects, propose policy changes, to invest in certain organizations. This can help each of us prioritize based on what we are excited about or able to do. And I hope that that's a start to the end. I know that's not a perfect answer, but.
Tia is satisfied with that answer.
Great.
Great. Any other questions from folks? Or again, I think we really wanted to leave a lot of time at the end of this Network Cafe, maybe more than usual, to hear from you all. And we know it's a big body of work, but this is what it's about. It's not just a thing for us to put out into the world and force it upon you. It's something that we'd want you all to be responding to. Jennifer has a great comment in the chat. In Wilton, they tried to calculate how many acres of farms we need to feed our population of 3,800 people. It was part of a discussion by the Conservation Commission as we prioritize high-value farm soils.
Yeah, she lands on the Conservation Commission. So the Conservation Commissions are very much a key part, I think, of our network. And I can't give you any specific numbers on how many Conservation Commissions were involved, but absolutely echo the critical role that they play in all of this work. And I'm going to hop to Cheryl's question. he'll ask, what is your current estimation regarding future USDA funding that might be needed to help this effort? And I do not have a good answer to that. We have not yet done that kind of calculation, but it's a really interesting question. Do you foresee some new dedicated sources of funding for plan implementation? The a funder within the New Hampshire Charitable Foundation and the New Hampshire Charitable Foundation team has been incredibly supportive of the New Hampshire Food Alliance as we seek to support implementation of this plan. I don't, for if you're getting at, is there going to be sort of a pot of funds to implement this? I don't think that has not been discussed. That would be lovely. Um, I I think it's a little bit more nuanced than that, and that the funders and donors that I know that are really passionate about food systems issues and the many tangential connected issues to food systems are, we're supporting us in putting this out or looking to it as a resource. And I guess my dream is that this can be an orientation for them as well, so that we can all sort of um, help explain how we fit together into a larger whole or how a project fits into the larger vision. But no, I don't see. I'll say that would be great. I don't foresee that happening anytime soon, but it's something to think on and try to make happen. Jamie.
All right. Any other questions from folks? Thoughts, things you want to share? We had a couple questions. I think if there are ways that we could make this content more accessible to you all, if there's things that you feel like we could be doing that would make it easier to take a bite out of this elephant, that would love to hear about that too, those types of things as well as how you may use it in your work. Will there be a bank that farmers can pull from to make their season equitable? That's an interesting question. Do you want to clarify that question a little bit, Patrick? You can hop off mute and add some specifics.
Or you can just chat. I put more in the chat if you'd like. But yeah, I do need a little clarification.
Well, I was thinking more of, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, great. I was thinking more of for family farms and larger farms. I know farming is a gamble. It is not guaranteed that you put down seeds in the ground, you are going to get an adequate outcome. However, to balance all of that so it doesn't become such a loss year after year, I guess is the question. And behind that question is the fact that the younger generations, the children, are watching what their parents go through and have to, how hard it may be to balance. And it may dampen their spirit to want to continue farming in the future. So, how do we, is there a way to say farming is good? Farming is a way to feed, but also is a way to sustain yourself that does not put you behind the eight ball. Something adequately to that.
Yeah, I would love to speak to that, Patrick. Thank you for that question. Um, I would direct you to, I mean, that is a big and hard question. So I'll say that. I would direct you for the content in the strategic plan to the supporting future and beginning farmers brief. I'm happy to show it if that would be helpful. But there is a brief focused on supporting beginning farmers and future farmers. And the subject matter expert team did a phenomenal job with it. There's also a brief focused on food and agricultural literacy, early childhood food and ag literacy, which is less focused on potential future farmers, but more focused on a more just a little bit more broadly about food and agricultural issues. And I think both of those, there's some content in there that you'll find speaks to your concerns. And then I just want to hop to, do you want to add something, Colleen?
Yeah, I think well, it just makes me think of the another statewide gathering session is that we highlighted that broad issue of particularly agricultural education in our state and what is the status of that and how can we improve and get more kids involved in on those career paths and get them interested and feel supported. So that will be a session that we're going to host with the career and technical education folks in the state. I'd met with them yesterday. They like blew me away. So interesting and prepared. So that is something that is top of mind and I think will be addressed at the gathering. So
You're
be
right. I'm excited about that session too. That's a
really
great
good.
favorite.
Yeah.
I want to respond to Jennifer's comment or question about assigning a recommendation to project teams. So I think that when someone asked about prioritizing, I think there's a few like we's here. There's the New Hampshire Food Alliance. So we have, we're like 3.5 full-time equivalents. We're a small team and with limited capacity, but we also we have the larger we have the network. And so what the Food Alliance is going to do is create action teams. And I think when you say project teams, that's what we typically call them, as an action team. And so with limited capacity, we can't have 143 of those, but we can host a handful of those. And that is absolutely happening. We're trying to pause and hear from folks and really like take a minute to enjoy and learn from the statewide gathering before we make decisions about what those action teams will be moving forward. If you've been involved in Food Alliance action teams in the past, you may have noticed that they petered out the last year as we realized how big of a lift this project was and also how much this work will really reorient us and our direction moving forward in a great way. That's sort of almost the point of it. And so, yes, absolutely, we will be coordinating project teams around specific recommendations. Which those ones are still to be determined. So if you have an idea or a passion that you want to encourage us to consider, I really hope that you will share that, shoot an email or give us a call, because we have the next 4 months, 3 or 4 months to really take a step back and do some thinking and planning. And we want to, in August or September, start those teams fresh.
And Nicole, if I could just piggyback off of that with just a statement of, I think this strategic plan has, because it's 143, it's such a mammoth and we are such a small team. I think something that I've been starting to say is that there's almost this unspoken invitation to, we are only capable, our team, of creating so many action teams and carrying so many specific recommendations forward, that I think there really is this invitation for the whole network to kind of own this document and hold each other accountable for each of us to really grab onto the recommendations that speak to us and carry them forth. I don't think it's the Food Alliance that has to feel the onerous of carrying 143 things forward. That's kind of the power of the network, in that each of us get to really get called to our strengths of our organizations and do what it takes. We're here to help brainstorm of what moving forward might look like, but really us leaning on the network as well to carry some of these things forward.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I just want to add to that, Caitlin, that one of the dreams I have for this is that I can't resist sharing is we have the recommendations and the briefs on there, and I want to be the next iteration of the website to be something where we can say, like, there's a specific project or there's a policy or something happening, and say Vital Communities has plans to do that or one of your New Hampshire Food Bank has a plan to do that very thing, or wants to, then that we can indicate that on there. And that's not a huge logistically, that's not huge. It just takes some thought and figure out how to do it. But some sort of indication so that when we are all working with and viewing this information, we also have some current understanding of if there are other organizations already starting work on that project or that policy or that effort. And so that's something I hope that we can spend time on in the months to come. And Deborah has a question or comment about community gardens and educational sessions, how to encourage community gardening. So there is a home and community gardening brief. The joke in my life right now is that it's really hard to have any kind of conversation with me without me saying there's a brief for that, so there is a home and community garden brief. So I encourage you, Deborah, to check that out and see what they recommended. And I think that this brings up a really good point that maybe we can think about when others have new ideas or something they want to add. How do we take in that information? And that's a whole other, we'll start to think about that. Just looking through the chat here. We have Andrew. Thanks, Deborah, for the thumbs up. Andrew, it's an interesting question. Andrew asked, knowing that the plan was developed before the recent tariffs, do you see an opportunity to create an addendum about the impacts of the tariffs on the New Hampshire food system? An opportunity. I don't know if I see an opportunity, but I don't see it happening. I don't see us doing that. I don't know, and it's not my expertise to pontificate on how the many of the changes happening at the local, state, and federal level will influence our food system. I certainly know that it takes funding to do a lot of this work, not all of it. There are a lot of recommendations in there that actually don't need substantial funding to make happen. But so of course, having less funding available or having expenses go up certainly will slow down some of this impact. But beyond that, I have to be honest and say no, that I don't see us creating an addendum about the impacts of the tariff specifically on the New Hampshire food system. But if you do, or someone else does, let us know. And we'd be curious to see it.
Just to add, I think to add to that too, I think the farm viability lens of this whole plan, like our whole goal, regardless of and inclusive of what's going on in the world, like is to move our farms forward and create a viable environment for them to thrive. And that's going to be in the face of many different things as the world turns. So I think that the work that's laid out in the plan will be able to be done and be as responsive as it needs to be to the things that are happening. So that's my positive view of that question. We got some more questions.
Yeah, I'm going to answer one more, I think, and then we're very serious about ending on time here. So we only have a couple more minutes. Patrick asked, will there be a call team for farm assistance when a climate emergency happens? And I do want to say that the climate resilience and disaster relief brief, of which there are authors on this call today, is a really fantastic place to look. And there's already been, since that brief was written, a lot of progress in our state on that issue, to help us be prepared in advance before there is a natural disaster, so that we can support each other and our farms in that situation. So I'll just defer you to that brief for now. And if you, Patrick, are curious to hear more, I can send you some information.
All right.
I think we should wrap it up. That was so thank you so much for being here, for all of your questions. And I just want to say, seeing your names and some of your faces, so many of you on this call, I can't start to name names because there's too many of you on this call that served as advisory committee members, as authors, as key cheerleaders throughout the process as we tried to figure this out. As staff people, I mean, all of so many of you on this call were involved, and if you weren't, that doesn't mean you should not be part of its future. So thank you all for being here, for making this happen. I'm really proud of our state, and I feel like this is a huge milestone that we're going to look back on with some time and space of us being able to work better together and make some real progress on supporting our farms and food producers.
Right. Well, that'll be it for us. Everyone enjoy their weekend. You know where to find us if you have questions or you're super inspired and want to reach out. And we will see you all soon, hopefully at the statewide gathering. Have a great rest of the day.
Oh my gosh, you see
That's
Jennifer's
very
comment?
nice.
Special place in heaven for you. We're going to quote you on that. Thank you, everyone.
Take care, everyone.